Okay, well, I think we'll get started and then some people may join shortly, but I'll just do some quick intros, then I'll pass over to the speakers for this morning. So thank you very much for joining us all this morning on this Innovation for Agriculture webinar about the Adopt Fund. I'm Holly Shearman and I head up the Livestock and Farm of the Future programmes across Innovation for Agriculture and the Royal Agricultural Society. As I've said, this webinar this morning is about the Adopt Fund. Is it for me and how do I access it? So it's very much meant to be a Q&A session. We've got some great speakers this morning. So hopefully once you've left this session, you'll have more of an insight into the Adopt Fund and what it can do for you. So I will just very quickly introduce our speakers. So we've got Kate Pressland from the, oh, sorry, I've lost my voice this morning, Centre for Effective Innovation in Agriculture. We've got Tom Slattery from the UK Agritech Centre, and we've got Chris Lyons from Innovate UK. Sorry, guys, I will leave you to introduce yourself properly, if that's okay. So I'm going to pass over to Kate Pressland first to give us an introduction on Adopt and sort of where it came from. And yeah, so thank you, Kate.
Good morning, everybody. Just a bit of background from me and why I'm interested in this area. I've spent the last 20 years or so focused on how agricultural research makes its way or not onto farm, and how farm innovation makes its way or not into research. And I wanted to just give a bit of a bigger picture overview of why this isn't just any bit of funding we've seen from Innovate UK or DEFRA before. So there's been lots of talk over those 20 years that I've been in this area and before about a sort of valley of death, it gets nicknamed, where research outcomes and real farm practice just don't meet very well. So there's been shifts in how this is addressed. Innovation for Agriculture is a great example of how that valley gap is being narrowed. But researching something doesn't necessarily mean it's useful. And learning something doesn't necessarily mean that it creates a significant change on your farm either. So ultimately, what matters is that farming is able to weather what Professor Tim Benson calls tuna times. It's easy to remember. So it's turbulent, uncertain, novel, and ambiguous. You know, the only certain thing about the future is uncertainty. So there's a need for resilience more than ever in farming. So yes, whilst there are huge global challenges, what can we do as farming and research communities right here in our little pocket of the world to help make farms more resilient, moving farming in a direction that it wants to go in and needs to go in? So Adopt is a different kind of funding program that's trying to do that. It doesn't come out of the blue. Bear with me, a little bit of history, but the farmer field schools set up in the late 80s by the Food Agricultural Organization in Southeast Asia and Sub-Saharan Africa. So it was quite a transformational idea, though, where you had farmers isolated by geography and disadvantaged by education and so on. They came together to share their knowledge, and later on researchers were put with them as well, and it was demonstrably powerful. It was quick too, that they went back to their farms and they immediately started to improve the way they were farming, and farmers could get access to researchers, share their knowledge, and there was a positive feedback between the researchers and the farmers. The farmers were learning straight away in ways that were much easier than a leaflet turning up on their doorstep. And then again, maybe it isn't rocket science, that it's a very human principle of social learning and learning by doing. This is quite a simple thing when you really boil it down, but it just didn't really exist in any kind of formal structure before. So you skip forward, and Danish field schools took a similar approach in Europe to great effect in their dairy industry. And then around 2012, Innovative Farmers Field Labs were trying to work out how this could be done in a UK context where farmers were instead time poor and constantly bombarded with information and products, etc. So trying to find something new or trying out something new had huge costs and risks associated with it. If you wanted answers on something, where did you even begin to find relevant information? It's hard to be agile enough. So field labs were a kind of showcase of this approach, and it worked. But actually, England was pretty slow to the game. Wales had Farming Connect. Northern Ireland has lots of farmer innovation work with CAFRA. there was Scotland's Rural Innovation Support Service. These all preceded Adopt in public funding for farmer-led innovation and support, but it's here now, which is great. So Adopt is essentially like supporting field labs at scale with much more significant funds behind it. And it means that farmers are tackling their own challenges head on with the researcher coming to their kitchen table, but also getting more funding to really achieve it. No longer will it be that the farmer is the only one in the room not getting paid to do research. So if you've been having discussions for ages on a problem and never quite getting around to solving it, why not get some support to finally do it? Stop kicking it down the road. It doesn't have to be fancy tech testing all the time either. Like, what if you've never tried cover cropping potatoes before, or intercropping, or a new cow health and welfare technique that you want to try, but it's risky on your own? So I would say that the research should be really pragmatic for this fund, and outputs from it really driven to be useful. It isn't about having nice to have answers or academic papers. The project should be really focused and helpful to the farms that are at the center of it. So having farmers as project leads does that, and Chris and Tom will talk much more detail about the actual mechanisms and how this funding works. But farmers, as we know, they aren't full-time researchers here. So having additional support from a coordinator, they're called facilitators in this scheme, baked into this funding scheme is really helpful, and it sets it apart from other publicly funded R&D that England has produced before. And they can help keep the show on the road, and the support hub can help you navigate that process too. There's a lot of support there. It's not like any other funds before, where it's really been others writing that proposal that you don't really have a part of, that you might have just been a user group of in the past as a farmer involved in research. This structure is so you're much more able to really target it into what you really need out of it. So I think my point with all of this is to say this really hasn't come out of the blue, and it's built on sound evidence that this approach can really be helpful to farmers, but it needed decent funding and support. So there are track records of this approach being successful in other devolved nations, and I would really recommend looking up Farming Connects in Wales program and the projects that they've done, and CAFRA's work in Northern Ireland in particular. It's really great. So remember that this fund has been designed for you, for farmers, not for researchers topping up what they already do, not for tech developers and engineering startups and product developers looking to do some more R&D, and just need more farmers to do stuff. That's not what this is designed for. There are other funds that do that better, that will protect your IP better, and all the rest of it. This is about the funding is designed for farmers quite specifically. And lastly, I actually think it's pretty cool, actually, that we've seen a coming together of organizations like we have around the support hub, and understand that this is a great collaboration. We often see a lot of slightly competing things happening in these kinds of spaces, and actually the hub is a bringing together of some brilliant organizations that are really dedicated to actually seeing impact on farm. So I think that's an incredibly positive thing, and I commend DEFRA for funding the hub with the organizations that are involved. You've got the partner organizations, but there's also a bigger, wider net where there's a great group of organizations all talking to each other, and really trying to use the opportunity well for their own networks to make sure that farmers they've been talking to for a long time are able to access the support to tackle the things they know have been bothering them for a long time. So I just wanted to give that big picture, that it's not just some random extra thing that's been out before that isn't that interesting. It is quite distinctly different. And it's important to understand what purpose it's trying to serve in that regard. But I'll stop talking now, because I'm not involved in all the odds and ends of actually applying, and the two other experts on the webinar know that far better than I. But thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Kate. That was really interesting and really useful to hear a bit more of the background and context towards Adopt. So sorry, I should have done some more housekeeping when I started my intros. Just to say that there's a Q&A box at the bottom of everyone's screens. If you do have any questions throughout any of the talks, please just pop your questions into that. And this is really meant to be an interactive session. So if you do want to introduce yourselves, please just pop that in. There's a chat box as well. So just pop your introductions in the chat box, and any questions into the Q&A box. That would be fab. But next, I will introduce Chris Lyons from Innovate UK, and he will tell us more information on the actual Adopt programme. Thank you very much, Chris.
Excellent. Thanks, Holly. I'm going to share my screen in a moment, but just to introduce myself. So Chris Lyons, I work for Innovate UK. If you're a farmer, you've probably never heard of Innovate UK because it's not something topical that we've often funded directly to farmers, but things are changing, and we are the government's innovation agency, and we are there to help support innovative ideas in the UK, very much from a business-led perspective. And we are tasked with, from DEFRA, to help deliver this ADOPT programme. So I'm just going to share my screen now, and hopefully one of my esteemed colleagues could confirm that they can see my screen. Are we there yet?
It's the minimized presentation.
Yeah. 2 seconds. Let's try again. It worked when we tried it just now. So let's go and try it again. That seems to be working better at my end.
It shows your full screen, Chris, but
Tom,
we can see the slides coming up.
Yeah.
Yeah, you just need to put it in presenter mode.
Absolutely.
There we go.
How's that? And you've seen the right screen. I'm guessing thumbs up. You are. Fantastic. Right. So this is the ADOPT programme. I have, as you might think, quite a detailed slide pack here, but I don't intend to talk to each and every slide. I just want to include the slides so that when we share them, everyone that's on this webinar has access to them and can, come back to us if they've got further questions. But this is all about the Farming Innovation Programme that's funded by DEFRA and delivered by Innovate UK. And it's all about enhancing productivity, environmental sustainability and resilience in England's farming sectors, but also benefiting other UK sectors as well. I'd like to say a big thank you to Kate for highlighting the work that's gone on to produce this programme of competitions. Yes, we've certainly looked at other devolved nations. We've also looked internationally at what goes on in places like New Zealand, Australia, Canada. They've all got fantastic programmes very similar to this, and so we've taken some lessons and hopefully we've got it right. I'm not going to say that we've got it 100% right, but we've certainly done an awful lot of work to try and be as effective as we can with this programme. So just very, very quickly, why are we supporting the whole innovation piece? And it's all about, trying to improve productivity in the UK from an agricultural perspective. You can look at the numbers on the right. There's been significant investment over the last 10 years, all focused really on trying to find those innovative solutions. But where we've got to at the moment, we haven't been able to demonstrate a lot of those solutions on farm. So this is what this is all really about. And as you can see, that last bullet on the left-hand side is all about adoption. We have seen very low levels of uptake on innovation. So this is absolutely why we're doing this and why I'm super enthusiastic that we make a success of it. So let me just give you a bit of context. This set of competitions for ADOPT is all part of the Farming Innovation Programme, which is part of DEFRA's Agricultural Transition Plan. As I mentioned, all about productivity, specifically in England's farming sectors, but we can support other devolved nations. Funding is awarded on a competitive basis, so you do have to do a little bit of homework to make sure that what you're putting forward has got some credibility to test, and that's why we're putting a lot of support in place to help farming businesses to do that. And Tom's going to speak a little bit later about all of the support that he can provide. But the most important bit is collaboration. We need to see farmers collaborating on this, specifically in England, but I've mentioned it and I'll do it again, that we can look at partner organisations across the UK, but this is what we want to really see is collaboration. Just in a little bit more detail, the Farming Innovation Programme is made up of lots of different things, right the way from smaller research starter projects, feasibility funding, sort of small and large partnership projects which go into the millions of pounds worth of grant funding, and themed competitions as well around net zero, for example, sustainable proteins, environmental resilience. But this is what we're talking about today, is the Adopt Fund, where farmers, real life actual farmers, can trial on farm new innovations, practices or technologies. So what is Adopt? So Adopt is Accelerating Development of Practices and Technologies Fund. It's a brand new type of funding. So it's focused, as I've said before, at on-farm trials and demonstration. And I don't want to move away from the point that it is brand new. We've never delivered this before. I know Kate talked about some programs that have been delivered by organisations such as the Soil Association and Innovative Farmers before, but this is new to DEFRA in terms of DEFRA funding. So this is really important that it's farmer focused. So we've mandated the fact that we need to see farmers applying for this. So that means farmers' names onto application forms with other farmers who are going to collaborate with them. That's really important. As I mentioned, we're going to pass over to Tom in a bit, who's going to talk a bit more about some of the support. So we've got a support grant, we've got a support hub, we've got a project facilitator database to provide expert support there on an individual project basis. So lots of built-in extra support for applicants. And it's multiple competition rounds. I've got a slide shortly showing the sort of rough dates of the next 4 to 5 competitions. We're very aware that DEFRA doesn't necessarily have the best record at the moment in terms of cutting off programs, but we have guarantees moving forward for at least the next 2 years of funding. And as I said, we've simplified our systems to make life easier for applicants. And the last bullet is all about collaboration. Collaboration, collaboration, collaboration. We want to see farmers all across the UK, particularly in England, working together to understand how they can get over significant challenges on their farms by bringing innovation forward. So let's look at a little bit more detail in terms of numbers, durations, and what we're actually offering here. So as I said, we've got a facilitator support grant. That facilitator support grant is £2,500 that will pay directly for what we're terming a facilitator advisor to support you through the application process of this programme. We will pay £2,500, not a penny more, not a penny less. And that's purely for you to get an application, a full application for the full grant across the line and assessed. And we'll give you 6 months to do that once you've been approved on a very simple initial application that those facilitators will most likely support you with. And then the second piece is the full grant. And those full grants are for project trials from £50,000 to £100,000 worth of project cost. And they will last from between 6 to 24 months. There's a really important bullet there in the left-hand bottom corner, and I've said it before, but I'll say it again, that lead farmer for the full grant must be based in England. Remember, this is primarily DEFRA money, so we've got to put it back into the pockets of English farmers. So that means that the lead must be from England. And we have been asked this on numerous occasions, but you do not need a support grant to apply directly for a full grant. So if you think you've got the capability and potentially some experience in working with grants, then absolutely go forward, go and apply directly for the full grant, because we'll see some dates in the moment, and it's really important that you hit those deadlines. So I've talked a little bit about this already, but we'll just very quickly go through. We've got the 2 grants, we've got a support hub, we've got a Business Connect project facilitator database to help individuals apply, because you need a facilitator to support an application. Again, that is mandatory on any application. Projects will trial, test and demonstrate on-farm viability of new and existing technologies, processes and practices. Remember, this isn't about getting necessarily new shiny pieces of the kit onto farm. You know, processes and practices have been put there for a reason. We know that there are new ways of doing things that can greatly improve productivity, can improve lots of areas of the farm that need to be focused on. So that's really important. And those project durations can take up to 2 years. So again, here's some dates. We are getting very quickly to the deadline for the facilitator support grant. It's only next week and it closes at 11 o'clock. That's really important. If you get an application in at 1 minute past 11, it will not be assessed and you will have to apply for the next round. But this is the important bit as well. That last line around round 2 opens, you will notice that it is the exact day after the submission of the first round. So we can see we've got a facilitator support grant. It opened on the 28th of April, as did the full adopt grant. The deadline dates next week for the facilitator support grant, the 25th of June for the full adopt grant. Those applicants will be informed just over a month up to and just over a month later. But the really important thing is what we're trying to do is provide consistency. So if you've missed one round, you've just got to wait for the deadline date so that the next round will open straight away. This is what we want to provide, an always open opportunity for you to engage with us. And as I mentioned, we've got some future dates agreed and confirmed. So here they are. They are on our website. They are on Tom's website, or they will be. And this talks about those first 5 rounds, which take us up to the end of this calendar year and into the early part of the next calendar year as well. So just to give lots of people lots of positivity around the fact that there are lots of opportunities to apply. If you missed round 1, do not panic. There are multiple rounds coming forward. And as I said, this is only this first year and we have got 2 years guaranteed as a minimum. So that's really positive. Again, it's just a summary here, just to say that, you know, we'll say these things numerous times and we'll still get asked, where does the lead farmer need to come from? The lead farmer needs to come from England. How much is it for the support grant? It's £2,500, not a pound over, not a pound under. And how long can that go on for? It's got to be 6 months. Can my project for a full grant last for more than 2 years? No, it's got to be up to 2 years maximum. Can I just go directly for a full grant? Absolutely. You do not need to have a facilitator support grant. We've made that facility available for those that have never perhaps been involved before and want some help to hold their hand on the way through. So that's just, again, another summary. And just to show you how the 2 different grants break down a little bit more, this is what goes on in terms of the facilitator support grant. It's where you answer some very, very simple questions about your idea for a farm trial. There's no detail required, no major budgets, and all that's in that application is yourselves as a farmer, a grower, or a forestry business, and a project facilitator, because you need a project facilitator to help you through. And there's a little bit of the process. So you apply, you get assessed, you will get a confirmation where you'll go through a setup period. Then you apply with your facilitator for the full grant application. And once you have applied with that full grant application, then you can make your claim of £2,500. So that's the facilitator support grant. This is the adopt full grant. We try and make this as basic as we can, but what we're looking for here is a little bit more detail about the what, the why, the how, and the when. A bit more of a detailed budget about what you're going to spend that sort of project value of 50 to 100,000, and that is a minimum value of 50,000 project cost. That's really important. Here's where things get slightly not necessarily complicated, but where other options can come into the frame. So on a full grant, we've color coded this. You have to have an English farmer, grower, forestry business. You know, you have to be that applicant. You have to have a project facilitator, and you have to have another farmer, grower, forestry business within that application. That's mandatory. You have to have that. And then if you've got research organizations or you've got tech companies or other businesses that want to be involved with the delivery of this project, then that's fine. That's absolutely fine. They can be part of your collaborative team, but they are optional. They are not a mandatory part. So I hope that all makes sense, but you know, we can cover it again if necessary. And here's a process for that full grant application. So as I said, you can go directly to it. You do not have to get a facilitator grant first. You can just go straight in. The facilitator can help you. You've got the competition stage. You will be assessed. Then if you're successful, you'll go through a project setup stage. Your project goes live. And then unlike the facilitated grant where you get paid your £2,500 when you get through assessment, when you actually get running with the project itself, you'll get paid quarterly in arrears for costs that you can prove you have spent on your project. Hope that makes sense. I know that I'm taking up a lot of time here, so I'm going to be very brief going through the next few slides, but hopefully that's given some indication of how the system works and the difference between those two competitions. So just a little bit about scope of ADOPT. Very, very broad. It's all about addressing on-farm or immediate post-farm gate challenges or opportunities. And those solutions that have been trialled must significantly improve the productivity of that farm and the wider farming sector, resilience, sustainability, and progression towards net zero emissions. That's really important. Some areas that we don't cover, and these are quite important. I won't go through each and every one of them, but they are typical to what we do within the Farming Innovation Programme. So if it's anything about aquaculture, we can't touch that. We can't touch anything around pets, equine, or anything like that. So it's really important to understand that those are exclusions. But as I've said before, the challenge has got to be in agriculture, horticulture, or agroforestry. And this is where we get into where Tom can get involved with support. So pre-application, we've got a support hub, we've got Innovate UK and the Business Connect facilitator database and those project facilitators themselves. The two grants are there in the middle. And then we've got live adopt farm trial projects that then go forward with either that project facilitator piece. The support hub is always there to help people. We've got an Innovate UK monitoring officer that will help and monitor each project to ensure that it is meeting its deliverables. And that's how all of that will come together to really hold the hand of the applicant to make sure it moves forward. Just a couple of technical points. So we're trying to make life easier in terms of you putting costs together. This is where we want you to really be able to be flexible with your application. So we're suggesting that everyone puts their costs into the other category when you come to apply. That's really important so that we can understand how your project is sort of coming together. And especially important if you're going for the facilitator support grant, because that's the only place that you need to put in your £2,500 and the name of your facilitator. There's some detail here about what we expect you to put in for your finances and the fact that other costs that I mentioned, that category, that's where we hope we can flex our system so that all of your costs can go into that other category and we can see it all working together. But there's lots of guidance, there's lots of additional links. And as I've said throughout, there's lots of support to be able to help you get through the process. So some useful information from Innovate UK and what we do, some links there. You also find some other funding opportunities, which Kate mentioned. You know, this might not be what is needed for your particular business at this moment in time. And so there are other competitions that are actually open at the moment through the Farming Innovation Programme, and there are other organisations that have funding available in the ecosystem that any one of the partners on this call can help you with. And this is an apt point for me to perhaps hand back to Holly, and for that to go forward to Tom to talk about the support hub and what we can do with project facilitators and everything else. So I will stop there, and hopefully my screen's disappeared.
Fabulous. Thank you so much, Chris. That was really useful, and really thank you so much for whistling through all that information. I say we will be sharing these slides after the webinar so everyone can catch up on that, but that was really useful. Thank you. And as you say, a perfect intro. So I will now hand over to Thomas Latley from the UK Agritech Centres, who's going to tell us a bit more about the Adopt Support Hub.
Hi everyone, and thank you, Holly and Chris. That was really detailed and very helpful. So I work with the UK Architect Centre, which is part of the consortium delivering the support hub. I'm just going to pull up some slides, see if I can do it a bit more smoothly. Is that working? Right. So the support hub, as Chris and Kate have mentioned, and I think it's really important to reiterate this, is there's an understanding that most farmers have not been involved in this kind of funding before. And so we are here to help farmers and other participants in these grants with absolutely anything we can, all the way from idea through to knowledge exchange. I think Chris has already mentioned this, but it's important to remember, like, we are completely free, fully funded service, and you know, I'll reiterate this again at the end, but you know, I can't encourage people more to get in touch. If you've got a fledgling of an idea, you are confused by some of the things that came up in Chris's presentation, you're not sure about what a project facilitator is, etc., please just do get in touch. And there's lots of contact details at the bottom. I mean, that's what we're here to do. So, you know, encouraging collaboration, providing guidance, supporting applications, projects. But if in doubt, just get in touch. And if we don't have the answer, we can steer in the right direction. Just to be clear, the support hub is, as I said, part of a consortium which is made up of ADAS, the UK Architect Centre, and Innovative Farmers, which is a programme as part of the Soil Association that Kate mentioned, that have done incredible work over the last 10 years in this style of farmer-led innovation. So who can we help? I think that the simple answer there is pretty much anyone who's interested in Adopt. So again, just to encourage, if anyone's interested at all, please do come to us. But to be specific, obviously we can help lead applicants, which again can be farmers, growers, or foresters, potential project partners, all partners in live projects, and importantly as well, facilitators. And I can say a little bit more about that in a bit. So anyone basically. How can we help you? Lots of ways. We can provide inspiration on projects. We can help you connect you with other applicants, potential partners. Importantly, we can signpost you to alternative funding sources, and there's a lot for us to do there, particularly with our connections to the UK Agritech Centre. So it may be this project, the idea you've got isn't 100% appropriate, but we can give you ideas of where else to go. We can give expert help. As we said, of that consortium, we have a whole team of experts that can help across different sectors and different parts of the industry, depending on what your ideas are. We've got lots of guidance material, and I'll just quickly show you that in a bit. We can help run training and Q&A sessions for projects. And importantly, if it's not clear from the start, we're here all the way from the start of projects all the way through the end. So we're here when you've got an initial project idea. We're there to help all the way through the projects, and we'll be there to help with dissemination and knowledge exchange of projects at the end, which is a really important part of what Adopt's trying to achieve. This is here to help farmers to do these projects, but also to demonstrate the value of those projects and the learnings of those projects to other farmers in England and the rest of the UK. and as I said, facilitating, helping, sharing the findings. It's just that we have a online support hub, which is live, and you can go there now, and the links will be in here. But on there, just for example, we already have lots and lots of frequently asked questions that we can answer. We've got a connections hub where you can put up a project idea or services that you can offer. And we're really, really encouraging people to use that. We've got a lot of guidance material on everything from what makes a good on-farm trial to specific examples and ways to make those trials better. We've got lots of case studies up there for inspiration. I think we have an understanding that people who haven't, particularly farmers who haven't necessarily done on-farm innovation or on-farm trials, might kind of not really 100% know what that might look like. So we put up lots of inspirational sort of case studies to give you a sense of like what that might look like. And so you can take an idea that you've got and potentially put it into that context. And then we're at a lot of events, both ourselves as the consortium and our consortium partners. So please do check that out. Just very quickly, I mean, we're going to be at all the major ag shows over the summer. So things like Cereals, Royal Highland Show, Groundswell, but also lots and lots of others. So farm walks and all kinds of other events and county shows. And so if you go to the website, there's everything that we're going to be out there. And we'd really like to meet people in person and start speaking to you about your ideas. So just to finish that off, I really, really encourage everyone to just get in touch. Start with the website, and then there's contact details there. We have the email address, or you can fill in an inquiry form on the website, or you can pick up the phone. There's a phone number. Again, like Chris will be sharing these slides afterwards. But yeah, just please do get in touch. Thanks, Holly. I've whizzed through that to give us time for Q&A.
Thank you so much, Tom. No, that was really useful. And as you say, yeah, please do utilise the support hub. It's there to help. And I should have said earlier, Innovation for Agriculture, we have facilitators within our team. We're also working with the UK Agritech Centres to disseminate the projects once they're going, also to engage with farmers to try and get them to uptake on projects. So please do engage with the support hub. No question is a silly question. I also have just been notified that the chat function for some reason is not working, so I do apologise, but if you have any questions, please do pop them in the Q&A. But I will kick off. I think there was actually one in there, but I will kick off by asking each of the panelists, I guess, so just give us an idea of the types of projects that you would like to see coming through the Adopt Fund. What sorts of things would you like, maybe from an arable one from an arable context and one from a livestock context, as I'm biased towards livestock? Who's going to kick us off?
Can I kick off then, Holly?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so I'm in a really positive position that I see a huge number of projects coming through Innovate UK with what we've funded in the past. And there are some projects out there that have now commercialised, but they haven't been trialled properly on farms yet on various different types. So if we talk about, for instance, the world of foot care in dairy cows, I'm blown away by automatic foot baths at the moment, and we had a project that was funded that has put cameras at the end of foot baths to look at digital dermatitis and the early signs of that. Wouldn't it be fantastic to trial some of those foot baths with that kit on various different dairy farms, robot systems, rotary systems, any sort, and also perhaps, you know, look at what those farms where we've got completely housed units, or we've got those that are out certain numbers a day, a year, and look at perhaps how they're affected, and the signs that come through from those particular farms, and you know how we can reduce the amount of chemical that's going in, because those cows that haven't got early signs of lesions can be moved away from going through routine foot bathing. That would be a fantastic one from me personally. From the arable side, there's hundreds and hundreds of different soil sampling kits out there at the moment, which link to lots of platforms, and I would like to see some joining up of sampling and platforms that can be trialled on lots of different farms, because I don't think we've seen enough of this, to really talk about things like compaction issues, talk about where carbon counting can come in as well. So there's a world of things within the arable sector that we can look at. But yeah, I think it just needs a little bit more, bringing together of providers with farmers' engagement, because I think we see lots of providers out there, but very little engagement, and this is absolutely what Adopt can do.
I mean, I
Excellent.
think, sorry, do you want me to jump in, Holly?
Yeah, go for it.
I think that was really nice examples, Chris. And from my perspective, I look at this, working with the UK Agritech Centre and AgriHappy before that, I've experienced seeing lots and lots of really exciting early stage technologies, some similar ones around, computer vision technologies that are able to help sort of detect early lameness, all the way to technologies to help us to monitor biodiversity in fields. And seeing projects where we get to test those across lots and lots of different farms and demonstrate how helpful they are is a really nice one. And then the other side is, we go to lots and lots of events, don't we all? And you take somewhere like Groundswell, which is full of like inspirational talks about things that people are doing, and things that people are trialing on farms across the world. And this is a really nice opportunity for farmers in the UK to see something like that, get inspired by that, and then collaborate with other people they know to demonstrate if that works in the settings, in their setting, or in the setting in the UK, or in that particular region, or in that particular farming system. And I think on both sides of that, this is why this is such an exciting opportunity.
Yeah, I think that's a nice way to think of it as well. I mean, for example, years ago, when there wasn't support for this kind of thing, I remember talking to the British Hop Association, and they were like, well, we can't apply to HDB because we don't qualify. We can't apply to BBSRC because we don't qualify. All we want to do is investigate whether or not we can grow cover crops in our hop alleys, because we have to keep bare soil because of verticillium wilt, and we want to try it, but we can't get support for it, and we need a bit of kit, that's going to fit between our rows, blah, blah, blah. And that's where a field lab was created on a shoestring, really. But that's the kind of project, there's a problem that's been bothering you, and it's actually quite a pragmatic trial. But there's just so many barriers in the way, and it's a bit of risk. And a huge number of those, I mean, hop growing is not a massive sector, but a lot were interested in that project. So there were a decent number of farms that wanted to trial it, the rest of the network watching and wanting to learn from it. And it's just pushing past that barrier. What are those problems that have been bothering you within your discussion groups, within your supply chain, that you've just been like, oh, wouldn't it be great if we could just have a bit of time to do X? That's the kinds of problems as well that I would really think, actually, let's just plot this through, because you know what the problem is, you know what you want to do about it, and the rest is just the detail of actually how could that work, when's the timing, and so on. So those kinds of really pragmatic problems, I think, are worth a shot, because otherwise you will just keep putting them off, and these opportunities for this kind of very pragmatic, accessible funding aren't that common. And the funding will have catches. It's public money. They have to prove that the public money is not going to just go and buy, a nice addition for your tractor that was slightly random. Of course not. But once you get past that, you go, actually, yeah, this is solving something that's bothered us for a long time. Also think of it in those terms as well, not as a kind of completely blue sky, oh, well, I wonder if we just flick through Farmers Weekly and try that new bit of kit. That might take a lot more working up. So, really think back to those discussions you have at, farm walks, and when you go to conferences amongst your networks. What are those persistent problems that actually you'd be up for getting your teeth stuck into, and you don't have to do it alone? Why don't 5 of you do it? And those kinds of problems I'd really like to see come through.
Fabulous. Thank you. So I guess leading on from that, so does it have to be a brand new idea or project or something that that you're bringing out, or can it be something, it's been mentioned a few times, could it be something that's already there that you're then trialing actually on farm, or you're putting in a different context? Does it have to be a completely brand new thing, or yeah.
Can I go first, guys, and then please chip in? So from our perspective, where we've tried to have a bit of foresight here. We're aware that there's loads of different things out there that might work really well and is working really well in the northwest of England, but no one's ever heard of it in the southeast of England, for example. So
Yeah.
that's to us, that's a different project because that is something that is specific to the northwest. And we want to see if it works in the southeast, for example. So these things can be out there, and this is the world that we live in today. You know, about the data that's produced today is as much as was produced, you know, across the whole of the 1970s, just because the amount of stuff that's out there now. So it's absolute that we'll never know all of the different trials, all the different projects that are going on. But as I think Kate and Tom said, what we've got is a really good team within the support hub where we've got, you know, the benefit of ADAS, we've got the benefit of the Soil Association with innovative farmers and the networks that they work with, so that people can get in touch with the support hub and say, I've got this really good idea for my farm. I've talked to my sort of other farmers that are in my support group, for example. No one's ever thought of this before. Talk to the support hub, understand if they're aware of this sort of thing going on before. Has this sort of research piece been done before? If it has, perhaps there's some learnings that can be taken straight from that, and we don't need to fund another project. Yeah, I'm conscious there is a pot of money here that will not fund absolutely everything that we get in that applies. But what I'm really enthusiastic about is that we've now got a support hub that can actually facilitate some knowledge sharing that we've perhaps not done before. So I'm really keen that people can connect on that basis to understand perhaps what other stuff has gone on and what might be right for their farm and their locality.
Perfect.
And
Thank you.
Holly,
Sorry, Tom.
just to build on that, and so what Chris has said is really, really accurate. I think the lens when I've been speaking to people, and we're speaking to lots of people, the ones that I've been looking at is firstly, this is open innovation. So like a lot of previous funds, as Kate said, were about potentially building IP or things like that. This is about open innovation. Chris said this as well, and it's about sharing. So the lens that I sort of put this in when I'm speaking to people is, you know, is this project idea going to be something that is going to benefit yours and the collaborators farmers across, let's say, productivity, sustainability, resilience? If that's a yes, that's great. And then are the outputs of this project? So you've got this great project idea, you've got some envisioned outputs. Are those outputs going to be a benefit to lots of other farmers or foresters or growers, depending on the type of project, across England and the wider UK? And if it's a yes to those two, that feels to me like the kind of project that we should be doing.
Perfect. Thank you. We've just got another question here. Is there flexibility in start time for projects, i.e., can we delay the start of a 2-year project to fit in with the breeding cycle? We may want to apply for funding to get the green light, but not be tied to a rapid start if that's the wrong time of the year.
That's a great question, Holly, and I started typing a response, but what I would say is to Tim, I think it was, to get in touch with Tom's colleagues at the support hub, because the important piece is that we have competitions going on constantly. So what people perhaps don't understand from the presentation that we've done so far is that the window that's open at the moment for round 1 full grant, those projects won't start if they're successful. They won't start until the 1st of November. So you can see when competition 2, 3, 4, 5 comes round, what knock-on effect that'll have to when those projects can actually start. So if Tim has a conversation with Tom's colleagues, it could well be that he could see, well, if I apply for competition 3, competition 4, that's going to be absolutely exactly when I want my project to start.
Yeah, perfect. And just one more here, which I think you have answered, Chris, but just in case people haven't seen the answer, will feedback be given to any unsuccessful applications so that they can be tweaked and resubmitted in later funding rounds?
Yeah, absolutely. So everything that's assessed, if it's unsuccessful, the feedback will be provided, because the last thing that we want is for people to go away dissatisfied that they've just got a no. You know, that's not the way that we operate. We want people to understand how they can make improvements and understand why they haven't been successful. So what we've built in the capability is that they get at least one more chance to apply for a future round with that same project idea that's slightly tweaked based on the comments given by those independent assessors that have assessed it.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. You can apply once more, can you? Once, if you have an unsuccessful bid, you can apply once more. Fabulous.
And again, it's the support hub. You know, what if people, hopefully some people are going to put applications in without our help and support. But, you know, if people, anyone who's putting in an application successfully or unsuccessfully, you know, where we're given permission to, we want to reach out to those people afterwards and speak to them. So obviously, if it's a successful application, we really want to speak to them and talk about this exciting project that they're going to be doing. If it is an unsuccessful project, we still want to speak to them about, you know, they've gone to the effort of applying. If they're open to it, we want to speak to them and see how we could sort of reframe that, or, you know, or help them with an application going again. So that's a really big part. What we don't want is people to make these applications be unsuccessful and then sort of be put off this completely.
Yeah, and it's important to reiterate that the hub service, you know, the innovation support you can get through the hub is free. It's entirely free. It's just a bit of time to talk to them, and I think that's, you know, that's really important to remember, because it's not often we get something free. There's been a lot of talk in around Adopt around paying for farmers' time. That's something that's really worth thinking about. And a point that we didn't make as well is that you get 80%. What's very common in funding schemes, particularly public money, is that you get 80% of the costs funded. And so that can put people off. But ultimately, think of it like this, that you could get no money and be doing it on a shoestring with a group of farmers, or, you know, it's got to be a problem you really want to solve. And so it's worth that 20%. If it's potentially really going to help you, great. If it really works, whatever you tested, it's fantastically successful, brilliant. You know that 20% was absolutely worth investing in. And if it doesn't work, the learning from that really helps you anyway. That's the driver. You've got to really be dealing with a project that you care about, because all of the project planning, all of the project proposal will all be much easier because you're really driven and getting that point across through your proposal. It doesn't have to be super fancy academic language in your application. Please actually avoid it. Tell the team exactly why it's important, exactly why it hasn't been solved before and it's been driving you mad for these reasons, and what you want to do about it and why you think that might work. Really clear, and that will come straight through all of the assessors looking at this and go, well, that's convincing. Why on earth hasn't that been solved before? Okay, you know, that's interesting. So that's what I would stress is, you know, I've heard of people wanting to get in application writers before. It doesn't have to get that complicated for this bid, and please try and avoid that. Talk to the hub first, and try and get a facilitator that maybe you know, somebody you already have great working relationships with, Innovation for Agriculture, other networks like that, people you've been working with for a long time, that you can really cut through all of that, all of those discussions to get right to the point.
Perfect. No, thank you so much. That was all really useful. And I know there is a very good Q&A tab on the support hub as well. But just one final question. In terms of financing, Kate, you covered that one perfectly. But just one more question. Does the lead farmer have to take all the financial responsibility? Do the partner farmers, can they also get paid? Do they have to get paid through the lead farmer effectively?
No. So
Right.
so whoever is a partner, you know, they get paid directly by Innovate UK on the submission of their quarterly claims. So, you know, we don't want to put additional, you know, requirements onto that lead. We want to make life as simple as possible. As Kate said, we pay 80% of the project costs. It's not 100%, but this is much better than it's ever been before. We've never been able to fund at 80%, so that's a really positive point as well. And I noticed just in terms of, you know, is it all auditable? You know, what reporting do we have to do? I noticed another question that's popped in, Holly.
Yes,
In terms
well
of
done.
what
Thank you.
we've got to pull back at the end of your project is what we term an independent accountant's report. And the monitoring advisors can talk you through that and explain it. And basically, if your accountant is properly registered on that database of accountants that we use, then that can be fine. And it's just a review of the sort of spending on that project that comes back to us for auditable purposes, really. But the really important point, which kind of relates, is that we want to take the learnings from all of the projects that we fund and share it out with the rest of the farming community. Obviously, you know, individual details do not need to be shared if people are concerned about that, but this is the point. It's all about sharing that knowledge, and that's another job of the support hub, is to really help disseminate that knowledge and make sure everyone can take learnings from it, that, you know, that project in the northwest or the southeast, wherever it is, you know, this is what was trialed, this is what worked, this is what didn't work. You know, it's all about risk in terms of trialing some of these things. So it's important that we can share some of that.
Yeah, definitely. And just speaking to Tom actually before this call, I think that's one of the most exciting things about this project, like you say, is the dissemination of the projects once they're going or once they're finished. Yeah, being able to share that knowledge exchange bit, it's going to be really exciting and really important. Well, thank you so much, everyone. If there isn't any more questions from anyone, I will say thank you very much for everyone that's attended. Thank you so much to all our three speakers. We will be sending out the presentations to anyone that signed up to this webinar, and the recording will be available on the Innovation for Agriculture website. But do get in touch with any of us at Innovation for Agriculture or through the support hub if you need a facilitator, or use that support hub if you have any questions about Adopt. But no, thank you so much, everyone, for dialing in, and have a good day.